All right, so now, while we're on this topic of changes, we want to cover some things that are foundational that need to be addressed at the factory level. I would say they're almost primary to a lot of
primary to quality,
and primary to a lot of design changes and ideas, because this is foundational as it pertains to the functionality of the house. Okay, these are things that need to happen at the level of the factory if we're going to have a bulletproof box house down the road that is quality, that we can be proud of, that doesn't have these consistent problems that our customers continue to complain about,
and that is maintainable. That we can maintain at the 5-year, 10-year, 15-year mark, whether that's us or another company or whatever. But yeah, let's get into it. And I'll show you some of the stuff I'm talking about. So let's first talk about plumbing stuff. We'll go in here into the shower and look at the shower valve itself. We're trying to find one of these, but we've had a couple that are broken, and we don't know if we can even get this in the States. And the threads that are on this are not national pipe thread like we use here. So even right now, before we have our houses up and running, we have problems and are not able to replace or maintain some of these parts. This part, no problem. We can get that. This part, different deal.
And the reason this is the problem is because this is from China.
From China
threads.
And the threads are British Standard Pipe Pitch or British Standard Pipe Taper, which are not national pipe threads that we use here in the States.
Which means not compatible with most parts or any parts that we're going to try to find as a replacement here.
Look at this right here. This is just the supply line to the toilet. Here in the States, we usually put a valve right there. So there's no way, if this toilet starts to leak, that you can just reach down here and turn it off. And that is the same threading problem that it is British Standard Pipe Pitch and not national pipe thread. So we have to change all those things out.
So having a stop valve here is standard in most American homes. And again, Mark's saying, if there's a toilet leaking problem, you have to go outside and shut the entire house water off.
Exactly. And along that, here's another one. Their valve. We've had multiples of these break. Now we have come up with a solution for that is an American product so that we can replace those, but that's only one of the things we think on this flusher piece that we have now found one, we're not sure yet, that can replace that if that breaks. So just a couple items there. This, not really a problem because we can put a new one in, but when we come down here again to where we're hooking into the wall, those are British Standard Pipe Pitch threads, and we're having to try to do a conversion to be able to run national pipe thread plumbing parts for us. So hard to maintain and convert when we get the stuff from the factory that is not national pipe thread. So it's a big one to put up to national pipe thread.
So again, a request to China would be is to change the threading, because it allows us to maintain and fix these houses without having to go to extreme lengths to find some makeshift
parts to repair, replace with,
or to rob another house in the interim, which is what we're doing right now. We're pulling a shower valve from some other house on the farm, robbing Peter to pay Paul, as they say.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So let's move out of here and we'll talk about.
Wait, what about the pipe, the thread coming, the valves coming out of the wall?
Let's look at we can't see the one behind here, but we did this early on, and it's not great. And I'm hoping that we stop it and we'll get this moved out enough that we can maybe see back there. I'm gonna be in trouble for messing up the bed. So here, this was because we think we're gonna have a sink back here, which we did in some. But we need to get rid of all of the other plumbing in the walls. It's here and it's over here on the side where the washer and dryer are. They don't work because if you add to that, it pushes out from the wall. And so the system we have keeps everything tucked in. Again, in a tiny house, space is at a premium. Those not being there so that we don't have possibilities of leaks and other plumbing problems. Even the possibility that there's pipes in the wall that we accidentally put a screw in. The less pipes in the wall, the better.
But this is returning to the principle that we said before. Someone probably had the idea, let's put these supply lines here coming out of the wall because we have our kitchen there. But that kitchen was only in the first couple example homes.
Yep. And then the sink got moved over here, and then it didn't make sense to have those there behind the range.
Yep. So we're still getting houses with these, and what we have to do is we have to plug those. In addition, there's water lines behind this wall that have a potential to be drilled into when we're putting up our wire mold and other things. So this is something that we need to remove, like all these supply outlets.
No more supply
From
pipes in the walls.
Cool.
Let's talk about condensation next, where we've been seeing condensation. We've been seeing condensation here, where it's the heavier metal, even though this wall piece that is insulated goes inside there. We're seeing some of that. We're seeing it up here in these places.
And we're talking condensation where it's forming drops and
Droplets that are dropping onto the floor and making puddles inside the house.
Yep.
Another big one we have, this seam right here. For some reason, any condensation that gets inside of this piece of steel likes to come out and drip right out of here. We've seen it on no less than 10, 12 houses. That's always where it comes out. So solving the condensation problem, I don't know how to do that right now, but it's a real issue that we need to look at, and possibly even putting in something so that we can get airflow through here better. Which, go ahead if you got something.
I was going to say, or just making China aware. Maybe they have a solution.
They might.
Because any of these steel beams or pillars that are connected to the outside, which is what these are, this is really thick steel, and it goes straight to outside. So that heat or cold is transferred directly into the house.
And then it pulls moisture out of the air and condensates on it.
So the insulation doesn't really affect or apply to these beams, and we need some kind of
there.
fix, right?
We know that solution there.
And weren't you saying earlier, like what happened when you first came into one of these houses in the
So
summer?
this was during the summer when we're putting these up, and I don't know that there's a place where I can do it here, but we were talking, and I leaned against a wall like this, and that wall was hot. It was hot to my arm, and that's an insulated wall, and that made no sense to me. I thought at that point, boy, we have a problem. If there's that much heat transfer coming through, we're just not insulated well enough. Now, I know we've addressed some of that. Our walls are a little thicker now, but still going forward, we need to make sure we've got the best insulation possible, and I know we're looking at that. In these houses specifically, we have dust issues, so we've had to caulk the windows shut. I know new iterations of our box houses have new windows, but they haven't been tested, and are they going to get tested in a real dusty environment? So we don't even know if those are good enough, or if we're going to have to do some caulking shut of the windows on those. That's more labor. Right now, it takes one guy, better part of a day, 6 hours, just to caulk the windows shut. That's labor that we should be doing something else. He should be hooking the plumbing up. He should be working on electrical. He should be doing, the panel outside. But something besides caulking windows shut, if we can solve that problem.
It's almost like, what's the point of having a window that opens if you can't open it?
Well, it brings in light.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good
so
thing.
you could have a window that's completely sealed from the factory if we're going to do that,
a
But
picture window.
But another something to bring up to China, if that's if that's possible, is just like we have significant, and even with the caulking of the windows, we still have dust that finds its way in here. It's
There's
crazy.
spots that it tries to find its way in.
Yeah.
And there's a couple windows that we leave open for egress that we don't caulk shut, and the dust is coming in them. It just does. So speaking of caulk, this house was designed with caulk keeping out dust and moisture, and it fails. It just fails. So a design where we don't use caulk, or it's very minimal caulk, is where we want to get to. Just the least amount of caulk would be better.
The ideal way to do things is not to use caulk.
To use caulk, yeah, and they love it, and we use way too much of it. But maybe it's the nature of the beast. But if we can design something better, which I know we're working on, get rid of the caulk. So let's talk about this design down here. And this piece of steel is a C like this, or a U, and this panel with insulation in it drops in. But that right there, if this caulk line breaks here, inside or outside, you can even see. I can see it right here. We didn't even do this, but it's right here. This is broken. That exact thing can happen on the outside rain comes, runs down the wall, it goes in there, and that's a gutter. And it fills up with water, and guess where it goes? It's going to come right out of this hole right here. So now we have rust and water inside of this channel, and it's coming in the house because we're relying on caulk to seal something. And it's happened in multiple places. We have a semi-fix so that we can get the water out of it, but that means draining it, which means drilling holes in it so that the water can get out where it shouldn't have gotten in the first place. Could have been a different design where you make sure and cover things as you go down, just like a shingle on a roof or lap siding on a house, the way we've done it for, dude, mankind's done it for 200 years, I bet. Guys in the Old West make lap boards and just cover the next. You start at the bottom and you cover it and you cover it and you cover it, and at least when water's going down, it goes over and keeps going out to the ground rather than inside. So that's another big one, getting rid of the caulk.
And we have a fix for it, but that's a fix. It's man hours, it's time, and it's unnecessary to a large degree. It shouldn't.
If we don't have to, we don't want to have to drill holes in it. So we're not just going through and drilling holes in everything. It's going to be someone saying, "Oh, I got water coming in the house. Oh, we know how to solve that." Then we go back and drill the holes. Again, maintenance going forward and forward. If we're drilling holes in a house, which then just is going to increase, possibility of bugs, dust, and other water and rust happening in those spots. So
now, and this is Monahan. So we've had a few rainy situations, right? And we're talking just a few rainy situations, and some houses you could see the water pouring out of that seam, right?
There were gallons draining out. Literally, when we drilled the holes, there were gallons draining out of that U-channel.
So again, if we're talking about a box house that's bulletproof that we can offer and place anywhere in the nation or even in the world, what happens when we put one of these houses with this design in a rainy area?
It's going to be wet inside the house.
All the time.
That's what it will be.
All the time.
And there will be failures like that.
All right.
I think that's most everything.
Roof.
The roof design on the new houses with the poly panel, I know we're having a fix for that. But again, we need to get that better insulated, and either a panel or a shingle system or a metal system that keeps the water out. We're not in that position yet. We don't have that in our box houses. These old ones, the first ones that we got, are probably better than most. But again, design, we've gotta think like water, not just rely on caulk to keep water out of the house.
And minimizing the fixes, because we shouldn't have to get a new roof that's supposed to be better functionality and then have to do another fix to the new roof. It's just adding a task on top of a task that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, more labor, more labor, more labor.
Yep. I think that's everything, right?
Yeah, I think that covers most of it.
So I think the reason that we wanted to cover this is because as we're talking about changes, a lot of the changes, quote unquote changes, are always focused on the design, and the design team is amazing. This is not a knock on design, but a lot of the changes are about design and the look, and what we're saying is at a foundational functional level, if these things don't get addressed, they're going to be continuous problems for customers and tenants in the future.
Yes. So. We'll point one more out too that we have got a fix for, but we found this out after the fact. And that would be right up here.
Oh, yeah.
That piece right there is an add-in piece of metal that we are doing because there is a hole left open there and massive amounts of dust coming in and just covering the floor. And so that's another place that even in the design coming from the factory, they had nothing in place to say, hey, that needs to be covered. Here's a piece that does it, or whatever that is. It was just left open, and then we found out that dust blows through there, even with it full of insulation. Yep. So insulation doesn't stop it. It goes right through that and comes in. Again, we have a fix, but it's an extra part that we have to go have made, build it, and put it in. So in the design process, can that be eliminated? Less man hours, less work.
4 spots in some houses,
yes.
most houses.
Yeah, it's in both up front and both in the back.
Yep.
In those.
Yep. Cool. Anything else?
I think that's it.
All right. I think that was great. Good job, boss.